Jahrzehnte hinweg prägt. Seit der Unabhängigkeit im Jahr 1956 ist der Sudan geprägt von Militärputschen auf der einen Seite und auf der anderen Seite von Konflikten zwischen einzelnen Stämmen in dem Land. Fangen wir mal an mit den Militärputschen. Schon kurze Zeit, nachdem die unabhängige Regierung im Sudan ihre Arbeit aufgenommen hat, also im Jahr 1956, wurde sie vom Militär gestürzt. Und das ist dann in der Folge immer wieder passiert. Eine Regierung hatte sich etabliert oder zumindest einigermaßen etabliert und dann kam das Militär und hat geputscht. Immer wieder im Laufe der Geschichte des Sudan ist das passiert. Zuletzt im Jahr 2019. Damals wurde der langjährige Diktator al-Bashir gestürzt und durch eine Übergangsregierung ersetzt. Eine Übergangsregierung, die aufgeteilt war zwischen Militär und Zivilisten. Und dann gab es noch eine weitere unabhängige Person, die das Ganze koordinieren sollte. Allerdings hat das so gehalten bis zum Jahr 2021. Dann gab es einen erneuten Militärputsch, einen Putsch, der angeführt wurde vom Militär, also von der Armee des Landes und von der RSF, von den Rapid Support Forces, über die wir gleich noch ein bisschen genauer sprechen werden. Das ist also erstmal wichtig zu wissen. Der Sudan ist ein Land, dessen Geschichte geprägt ist von Militärputschen. Und der Sudan ist auch ein Land, das geprägt ist von großen Konflikten zwischen einzelnen Volksgruppen, zwischen verschiedenen Stämmen. Wie so oft in Afrika wurden im Zuge der Nationenbildung, im Zuge der Kolonialisierung, Länder gebildet, die gar nicht auf natürlichen Gegebenheiten basiert haben. Da wurden dann Volksgruppen, Stämme zusammengeworfen, die eigentlich verfeindet waren oder zumindest nur wenig miteinander anfangen. Im Sudan war das insbesondere im Süden ein. Der Süden Sudans wollte, auch schon vor der Unabhängigkeit, komplett eigenständig werden, ein eigenes Land. Und das wiederum hat zu einem Bürgerkrieg geführt, zu einem sehr langen Bürgerkrieg, ungefähr 20 Jahre lang, der erst im Jahr 2005 beigelegt wurde. Es folgte dann ein Referendum 2011 und danach wurde der Süden des Sudans ein eigenes Land. Jetzt gibt es also den Sudan und den Südsudan. Das klingt jetzt alles nach einem sehr natürlichen, einem sehr einfachen Prozess, aber mit diesem Prozess verbunden war großes Leid für viele Menschen im Sudan. Der Sudan ist das Land mit den meisten Binnenflüchtlingen der Welt. Man geht von ungefähr 3 Millionen Menschen aus, die im Land selbst Flüchtlinge sind. Oder auch in den Ländern selbst, also im Südsudan genauso wie im Sudan. Der Süden ist allerdings nicht die einzige Region, in der es immer wieder zu Unruhen gekommen ist. Ganz besonders zu nennen ist außerdem noch der Westen und hier insbesondere die Region Darfur. In Darfur leben viele Menschen, die sich von der Regierung in der Hauptstadt Khartoum über die Jahre hinweg schlecht behandelt gefühlt haben und sich auch immer noch schlecht behandelt fühlen. Es kam dort immer wieder zu Aufständen, da ging es auch um Wasser, um Lebensmittelverteilung und diese Aufstände wurden regelmäßig blutig niedergeschlagen von den Truppen der Regierung. Bis zu 300.000 Menschen sollen im Laufe der Jahre dabei schon ins Leben gekommen sein. Die Situation ist bis heute nicht geklärt und noch immer fühlen sich viele Menschen im Westen des Sudan schlecht behandelt. Dazu muss man wissen, dass der Sudan auch ein sehr armes Land ist. Ungefähr 20 Millionen Menschen dort sind auf humanitäre Hilfe angewiesen. Das ist fast die Hälfte der Einwohner des Landes. 3 von 4 Kindern leiden regelmäßig Hunger im Sudan. Ganz besonders schlecht behandelt werden neben den Kindern auch die Frauen, denen immer wieder Vergewaltigung droht und denen vor allem in Darfur immer wieder übel mitgespielt worden ist. Und wenn wir über Darfur sprechen, dann müssen wir auch über die RSF sprechen, über die Rapid Support Forces. Die wurden nämlich vor einigen Jahren von der Regierung beauftragt, im Sudan, ganz salopp gesagt, für Ruhe zu sorgen. Das haben sie gemacht und sind dabei zu einer mächtigen Militärmacht geworden. Nicht die offizielle Armee, aber sozusagen der rechte Arm der Regierung in Khartoum, um den Westen in Schach zu halten. Und genau da sind wir jetzt bei der aktuellen Situation. Denn durch diese Entwicklung ist die RSF sehr mächtig geworden. Manche Experten sagen sogar mächtiger als die reguläre Armee des Landes. 2021 kam es, wie vorhin schon kurz erwähnt, zu einem erneuten Militärputsch durch das offizielle Militär, aber auch durch die RSF. Die haben sich zusammengetan. Seitdem regieren zum einen der Anführer der Armee, der General, über das Land und sein Stellvertreter ist der Chef der RSF. Das hat knapp 2 Jahre lang mehr oder weniger funktioniert, aber jetzt kam es zu einer großen Auseinandersetzung zwischen diesen beiden Männern und zwischen diesen beiden Kräften. Denn die RSF sollte aufgehen in der offiziellen Armee des Landes. Die Armee hat es nicht länger dulden wollen, dass es da eine große militärische Macht neben ihr gibt. Und daran ist ein großer Streit entbrannt, aus dem jetzt eine Art Aufstand geworden ist. Ein Aufstand der einen militärischen Gruppe gegen das offizielle Militär des Landes. Also RSF gegen die Armee des Sudan. Begonnen haben diese Auseinandersetzungen, wobei Auseinandersetzungen ein viel zu harmloses Wort ist, es geht hier um Kämpfe, begonnen haben diese Kämpfe Mitte April und sie halten trotz verschiedener Waffenstillstandsvereinbarungen bis heute an. Denn beide Gruppen sind ungefähr gleich stark, also die Armee und die RSF. Keine der Seiten will klein beigeben. Die RSF greift zum Beispiel Regierungsgebäude an, Polizeistationen, versucht die Oberhand zu bekommen, insbesondere in der Hauptstadt Khartoum, und die Armee hält dagegen. Es hat inzwischen rund 500 Tote gegeben, Tausende Verletzte, und besonders getroffen hat es die Menschen, die gar nicht an den Kämpfen direkt beteiligt sind, nämlich Zivilistinnen und Zivilisten. Die Vereinten Nationen, auch die Europäische Union, ruft immer wieder zu Friedensverhandlungen auf. Die USA haben versucht, einen Waffenstillstand zu vermitteln, aber der wird weder von der einen noch von der anderen Seite richtig eingehalten. Und so wird zumindest in Teilen des Landes weiter gekämpft. Und die große Sorge ist, dass sich das Ganze ausweitet zu einem Bürgerkrieg. Da kommen wir gleich noch ein bisschen genauer drauf. Bevor wir darüber sprechen, aber zuerst mal noch die Antwort auf eine andere Frage, nämlich wie geht es den Menschen im Sudan? Wie vorhin schon gesagt, ist der Sudan ein armes Land. Ein Land, das ganz besonders getroffen ist vom Klimawandel, von den klimatischen Veränderungen. In vielen Teilen des Landes kann man keine Landwirtschaft mehr betreiben. Es gibt kein Wasser. Die Menschen müssen lange Strecken laufen, um überhaupt an Wasser zu kommen. Es kommt da auch immer wieder zu Verteilungskämpfen. Dazu muss man wissen, dass der Sudan eigentlich reich an Bodenschätzen ist. Es gibt einige Goldminen, die aber entweder von der Armee oder von der RSF besetzt werden. Und auch das führt immer wieder zu Konflikten, in die die Bevölkerung mit eingezogen wird. Die verschiedenen Stämme, die sich untereinander nicht verstehen, bekämpfen sich auch in Teilen des Landes immer mal wieder im Kleinen, und auch das sorgt dafür, dass die Zivilbevölkerung stark leidet. Kinder, Frauen, ältere Menschen sind davon ganz besonders betroffen. Es ist eine humanitäre Katastrophe, die schon vor den Kämpfen im Sudan sich immer weiter entwickelt hat und jetzt deutlich größer wird. Auch deshalb, weil Hilfsorganisationen wegen der Kämpfe momentan in Teilen des Landes überhaupt nicht aktiv sein können. Die Welthungerhilfe hat sich zum Beispiel zurückgezogen, sagt zum Beispiel vielleicht im Osten des Landes bald wieder etwas starten, aber momentan ist hier keine Hilfe möglich, und das trifft die Menschen enorm stark. Und das muss man ganz klar an dieser Stelle noch einmal betonen: Am schlechtesten geht es den Menschen im Sudan selbst. Vor allem den Menschen, die sowieso schon auf der Flucht waren und vor den Kämpfen jetzt noch einmal hart getroffen werden. Aber auch Menschen aus dem Ausland sind betroffen. Und hier denkt ihr vielleicht auch an die Meldungen der vergangenen Tage, dass die Bundeswehr Deutsche aus dem Sudan ausgeflogen hat. Was hat es mit der Bundeswehr auf sich? Wie oft in solchen Fällen versucht der deutsche Staat, Menschen aus Krisen, aus Konfliktsituationen auszufliegen, um sie zu schützen. Das hat eine Weile gedauert. Im Gegensatz zu anderen Ländern ist Deutschland relativ spät aktiv geworden, hat jetzt aber in den vergangenen Tagen nach Angaben der Bundesregierung Menschen aus dem Sudan ausgeflogen. Und die noch im Land sind, die sollen dann in den kommenden Tagen und Wochen ausgeflogen werden über befreundete Staaten. So heißt es zum Beispiel auch mit Hilfe der Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika. Daran wiederum schließt sich die letzte Frage an, wie so oft in solchen Situationen: Wie kann es weitergehen? Hier gibt es realistisch gesehen zwei Szenarien in Bezug auf den Sudan. Das erste ist das positive Szenario. Es kommt nicht nur zu einer Waffenruhe, zu einem Waffenstillstand, sondern tatsächlich auch zu Friedensverhandlungen. Diese Friedensverhandlungen können a. realistischerweise nur herbeigeführt werden, wenn andere Staaten beteiligt sind, und b. wird es vermutlich noch eine ganze Weile bis dahin dauern. Die Vereinten Nationen könnten sich zum Beispiel involvieren. Blauhelmsoldaten mit einer Friedensmission wurden schon gefordert, allerdings kann das nur unter bestimmten Bedingungen zustande kommen. Aber wenn das alles klappt, dann könnte das eine Lösung sein, dass eine neue Übergangsregierung installiert wird im Sudan, dass es Wahlen gibt und dass aus diesen Wahlen dann eine demokratisch gewählte Regierung hervorgeht, die dann, das ist wiederum die nächste Hoffnung, nicht bald wieder vom Militär weggeputscht wird. Das zweite Szenario ist deutlich düsterer. Es könnte auch sein, dass sich dieser Konflikt, dass sich diese Kämpfe noch ausweiten, dass zum Beispiel die Situation in Darfur noch einmal hochkocht, dass die Rebellengruppen dort ihre Chance sehen, jetzt wo die RSF anders engagiert ist, einen Aufstand zu proben, und so könnte es zu einem Bürgerkrieg kommen. Der könnte auch in anderen Teilen des Landes ausbrechen, und so könnten viele verschiedene Kräfte im Land gegeneinander kämpfen. Die Situation könnte völlig unübersichtlich werden. Der Sudan könnte zu einem sogenannten Failed State werden. Deshalb ist die erste Lösung, die Friedenslösung, natürlich die bessere, aber momentan ist ganz schwierig abzusehen, in welche Richtung es sich bewegen könnte. Noch stehen sich beide Seiten unerbittert gegenüber, und es ist nicht davon auszugehen, dass einer der beiden Kontrahenten einknickt und sagt: Okay, jetzt sind wir uns dann einmal zurück. Wie gesagt, hier spielen auch Rohstoffe eine Rolle. Auch Religion spielt wie so oft eine Rolle. Mehr dazu habe ich euch unten in der Infobox verlinkt. Also eine wirklich schwierige Situation im Sudan, die auch mit der Geschichte des Landes zu tun hat, mit der Kolonialisierung, mit der Unabhängigkeit danach, mit dem ungeordneten Übergang in die Unabhängigkeit und mit den vielen Militärputschen, die es im Laufe der Geschichte gegeben hat und mit der Unruhe im Land. Das Land ist nie wirklich stabil gewesen. Die einzige Phase, die stabil war, das waren so die vergangenen 25 bis 30 Jahre vor dem letzten Militärputsch, die waren geprägt vor einer Diktatur. Und das ist eine Situation, die für die Menschen im Sudan auch alles andere ist. Was denkt ihr denn? Was müsste passieren im Sudan, dass sich wirklich etwas besser für die Menschen dort? Schreibt das gerne unten in die Kommentare. Und hier neben mir findet ihr ein Video über die Geschichte der Kolonialisierung des afrikanischen Kontinents. Und direkt hier neben mir ein Video zu einem ganz anderen Thema. Da geht es um Russlands Kriege. Auch das ist ein Video, das geprägt ist von Konflikten, von Auseinandersetzungen. Ich danke euch fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal.
I'll get my star for once. Nice.
They are trans age. I do.
All right, Benny Ben, what are you talking about over here? I think this was yesterday.
Well, folks, as you know, there's a clip of me that once went viral, all about me asking a young woman why she couldn't be 60. She was arguing, of course, that a man could be a woman. So I said, well, you're 21. Why can't you be 60? Well, now people are actually doing this. They're actually claiming that they are trans age. I do wonder sometimes whether the left hears itself. So, over in Florida,
Okay, can I just argument real quick? Okay. Let me start with this, okay? Every single person on the planet, every single person on this planet believes in trans age, okay? To start with. All of us think that trans age is real, okay? The issue that these people have is they don't actually use their brain when they're engaging with the question, and to be fair, people on the left has super muddied the water on what it means to be trans, okay? When we talk about what a trans person means, okay, hopefully, if we're still in the world of reality, okay, in the world of reality, a trans person's brain could be sexed differently than their body, right? So if that is the case, you're not just randomly identifying as something, there is a fact of the matter about the state of your brain, okay? When I talk about the trans age thing, when we talk about age is typically a signifier for other things in your life. For instance, when you hit a certain age, you have a certain amount of development. When you hit a certain age, then you're allotted a certain amount of rights when you get to the age of majority, right? So, for instance, at 18 years old, you have the right to own property, to go have sex, to go do whatever the fuck you want to do at 18 or 19 in some states. I think in Nebraska it's 19, right? However, in the United States, we recognize that some people's brains don't actually mature that way. in a way, we kind of treat people with severe mental disability as like trans-aged down to a younger age. We might treat somebody that has severe autism or crazy Down syndrome at 30 years old like they're only 6. You might actually do that. Or we might say this person is age 25, but because of a developmental disability, this person is treated essentially as a 15 or 16-year-old. Like this already happens in the United States, where we revoke rights from people or we assign permanent guardians to somebody because their brain hasn't matured as much as like the age they have, the age that their actual body is. So when somebody's like, oh, like trans age, it's so stupid, we kind of do treat people as different ages based on like developmental delays or other sort of problems, okay? However, you can't just say that you identify as a different age, okay? Because that doesn't make sense, right? Age is typically, if it's not gonna be a signifier for like actual like physical development, age is just it's just a number. Age is a, it's an actual thing that measures like how many times the Earth has gone around the sun while you exist on the planet. You can't just identify that away, right? I've been alive for 11 years. I can't identify as being alive for 30 years. It doesn't make sense. It's nonsensical. It's like identifying somebody with 4 or 5 arms. You can't do that. But for a trans person, the argument is that their brain is actually sexed differently. Their brain is sexed differently than their body, so it's not just that they're identifying as trans, it's that they are trans. Now, whether or not you believe in trans people, that's fine. If you say, oh, well, I don't believe that trans people are real, I don't believe that, I don't believe any of that. Like, that's fine. If you don't believe in trans people, you think it's all fake bullshit, that's fine. But at least engage with the argument as it is. That's the argument as it is presented, all right?
A gay parade has now been canceled. Why? According to Local 10, officials in a Florida city have canceled the gay pride parade and restricted other pride events to people 21 years and older in anticipation of Governor Ron DeSantis signing a bill meant to keep children out of drag shows.
How are brains sexed differently? Could you elaborate? The argument goes that your brain has some sort of sex. Most people's brain sex aligns with their body sex. Your gender identity, your gender expression are the same. That's like most cis people. But for trans people, for whatever reason, something has happened to sex their brain differently. Where their brain is sex is female, where their body sex is male, right? Now, whether that's actually true, whether there's other like things at play, obviously is still to be researched. Like this is all debated. Like trans stuff is like pretty new in terms of research and everything. Nobody's got a concrete answer. But that's like in my opinion, that is the strongest argument for the existence of trans people. The self-ID stuff and all that other nonsense is just that. It's nonsense. It's garbage. Like who cares?
Pride Alliance for the Treasure Coast posted Wednesday on Facebook the decision to change this Saturday's Pride Fest events was made after multiple conversations.
How are brains sexed differently? Could you elaborate?
I just did. Dumbass.
Lucy officials. So, why?
Except not anymore, Destiny. The mainstream talking point is that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. Whoever says that is a fucking retard, ignore them. Who cares?
The DeSantis administration was cracking down on lewd displays before children. They basically said no assless chaps or displays of dildos. And in front of the kids. And the gay pride parade, instead of being like, okay, we'll fly our rainbow flags and we will celebrate gay marriage, they're like, nope, we're gonna pull the parade. Do you hear yourselves, guys? I mean, I'm fine with it. That's what you want to do. But it seems like you're kind of like, is that if the purpose of the gay pride parade is the assless chaps and the simulated sex act in front of kids, and so you have to cancel it to the extent that like a law that says you can't sexually indoctrinate kids affects the parade? What does that say about your parade, really? I mean, meanwhile, other things that I like. The trans movement obviously is going to have some radical ramifications for a lot of other things in American life. One of those things,
the Warriors, this law is probably phrased in such a way that it's going to be like, it has a needless overreach. It's going to be my guess, but I haven't seen that particular law in Florida, but.
Obviously, is going to be the question of age. So, you'll recall that a few years back, a very, very famous exchange between me and a college student, in which this college student took the position that men can be women, women can be men, and I asked this college student her age. And she told me her age. She said she was 20 or something, 21. And I said, why aren't you 60? And this, of course, went viral because I was saying, like, you can't change your age and you can't change your sex. So what are you talking about here? Let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are, okay? Because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably only 90, right?
No. Why aren't you 60?
Could you not say time is perceived faster or slower for people in their head, which is why they feel like they're older/younger?
But we usually have a term for that, maturity. Like age is pretty tied in, right? You can't identify as 4 feet tall or 9 feet tall. You can't identify as having 7 legs. You can't identify as being a different, like, years you've existed on the planet, right? Ben not realize how embarrassing it is to bring up a dunk on a fucking college kid? I mean, that's technically that's how he made his early shit, right? Destiny, the corollary of your trans age argument is that trans must then be a disease to be accepted. You can call it a disease if you want. You can call it whatever. People typically don't because it's I mean, it's an abnormality, of course. People don't because that's like a normatively loaded word. But I think you're trying to normatively load it, so you're not trying to trap me because you're interested in like an actual like intellectual grasp of the topic. You're just trying to get me to like admit that it's a disease. But like, sure, like let's say that I grant you that. Okay, sure, being trans is a disease. That makes you even more retarded for saying people shouldn't be allowed medication to treat it, right? Like if you try to push that hard as a conservative to get somebody to say like, oh, isn't being trans an illness? Like, yeah, it is true. It's an illness that's treated by age 13 surgery. Like, okay. Or are you telling me now you do want to recognize it as an illness, but you don't want to do anything about it, which is even more retarded. It's the most retarded position, right?
60. And why can't you?
Ben Shapiro is a better man than me. There is no shot I would be able to watch videos of myself dunking on like randos from 8 years ago and not cringe into another. Oh, I recognize this. I feel like I've watched this video before. I probably watched this video 6 years ago.
Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are, okay? Because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably over 90,
trans
right?
age. Totally explains why I'm racist and sexist. I'm a 80-year-old man in a 20-year-old's body. Justified finally.
Okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably over 90, right?
No, why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
She hasn't, because the problem is she doesn't have a fully developed thing. Like, why aren't you 60? Well, because there's an underlying fact of the matter for my age, right? But there's also an underlying fact of the sex of the brain. That should be the argument, right? Like you said, this is a super viral video, yeah.
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
It's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender.
Is it
well,
though?
now I guess we've hit.
Is age significantly less important than gender? Like, if you could know one thing about a person, who did you yesterday, and you want to know if it's right or wrong, would it be more important to know the age or the gender? I feel like that's not the case that in all ages, or I'm sorry, in all cases, gender is more important than age. It probably depends a lot based on what we're talking about, right? Like, but I mean, like, I'm being a little obtuse now, but like, it's kind of silly to compare the two. Like, what's more important, your age or your gender? I don't know, that's kind of silly.
Hit the end of parody because now we have 60-year-old men identifying as 6-year-old.
Wait, someone in chat just said from a medical perspective. Even from a medical perspective, like, this person's kidneys are failing. Would you rather know their age or their gender? Well, that doesn't, like, if they're 2 years old, that's a really big deal. If they're like 112 and they're like on their last legs, right? I don't know. It's just, it's a silly comparison, I think.
Well, girls. This is a clip that was going viral on the Twitters of a 6-year-old man in Great Britain claiming that he is in fact a 6-year-old girl. Now, what's hilarious about this, and the reason why I put it in things I like rather than things I hate, is I think it does quite well expose the trans agenda. If this were a man claiming that he is in day 365 of girlhood, he would be getting all sorts of ad deals from Maybelline and Tampax and Bud Light. But since he claims that he's a 60-year-old man who's a 6-year-old girl, it's the age that really is upsetting people. It's the age that's troubling, not the fact that this is a dude claiming that he is a female.
Today is my first day of having my living room as my playroom. And my Kodo is here with me, but I didn't have any friends over for the play date because it's COVID time. But
is anybody defending this?
I'm having fun with Makoto, my cat, and with Franny. She's my baby. Anyways, I just wanted you to see I made a tutu with my sewing machine.
Oh no.
And it's for pretending to be a little fairy.
Oh no. Oh no. But here's the thing. Why not? Question to the left. Why not? Why can't this 60-year-old man be a 6-year-old girl? Why not? You say he's a man who can be a girl. Again, day 365 of girlhood means that you're getting calls from the President of the United States. So when is the Prime Minister of Britain Not Rishi Sunak, who actually has his head screwed on straight on this. Yeah, maybe some of the former prime ministers. Well, why don't they call up this guy and congratulate him on becoming a 6-year-old girl? I mean, the good news is that, according to the left, this means that he is basically immoral, because he can just keep identifying as a younger and younger person. He'll never die. That's very exciting. None of this ideology makes sense, because it is all pagan crap and has nothing to do with reality. Okay, time for some things that I hate.
I'm saying this out loud because I'm never going to do this, but this is such a good idea. Imagine doing a show. It would be so much fun to do a show like Fresh and Fit, but instead you just bring on guys instead of girls. You bring on like frat boys. Oh my god. There would be like an infinite number of ideas you could spin off in terms of like shit you could do on this. It would be so funny. Like when you go around the table, instead of asking like what's your body count and your relationship status, like imagine you go around and you ask like what's your height and your IQ for every single guy at the table. And then sometimes on episodes like Fresh and Fit, Myra will bring out like a scale to like weigh girls. Imagine a guy's like 6 foot, and then you bring out like in the middle of the episodes like we're gonna measure your height for all of you. And then it would be so much fun to go. You know how Sneeko says shit like oh, name 3 countries. It would be so funny to go around a table of frat boys and be like, I want you to calculate in your head with no calculator what is 17.5% of 100, right? And like see how many of them can actually get it right as you go around the table. Or like you're traveling 80 miles. Or wait, what's the one question that f***s everybody up? How long does it take you to travel 60 miles if you're going 60 miles an hour? Is that the one? Like it would be so fucking hilarious to do this with a bunch of frat boys. Oh wait, what? Did I just get my first contestant? Oh no.
You're going 70 miles per hour. How long would it take you to drive 70 miles?
70, nigga?
Oh, why? Why 70? Explain to the camera why.
Because 1 times 70, 70.
Well, who the said anything about 1? Where did 1 come from? You're going 70 miles per hour.
Oh, 1 hour.
You're going...
I feel like there's a video in a car where somebody does this for a long time. Oh my god, hold on. I'm sorry, I just have so many good ideas. Imagine you have like a soundboard where you push the buttons like Myron has, but all of the buttons are like quips from things like the women on The View say. That would be so good. God damn. Okay, sorry.
There is a human named Jules Hoffman. Jules Hoffman is a woman, but Jules Hoffman says that she is a they. According to Jules, the reason this is of relevance is because Jules Hoffman is one of the stars of a wildly popular YouTube channel for babies and toddlers called Songs for Littles. The host of this is apparently a person named Miss Rachel. Now, I've never watched this, nor would I expose my children to a woman who says that she is a they, not 3-year-old children. Nope. But this is, what is it? So Miss Rachel used to be just a place where you would hear a cute song sung to your 3-year-old. Now it's...
Wait, dude, August's gonna hate me so much because he wanted me to watch this video. Now I'm getting hardcore distracted. I'm so sorry.
All right, we're traveling from Logan to Boise, and I just proposed a math question to my beautiful wife, Chelsea. And the question, very difficult to calculate, is if you are traveling 80 miles per hour, how long does it take you to go 80 miles? Okay, what do you think, Chel? Let's go through the process. What do you think?
Well, if I run the mile in about 9 minutes...
Wait, what about the tire turning thing you were talking about? Do you think that affects it?
Well, I'm just guesstimating probably about... It turns about 400 times in a mile.
That's just calculate, like guessing calculations?
Yeah, I don't know how you would work that out.
It'd be tough.
Yeah, so... I don't know, because if I run a mile in like 9 minutes, then... I mean, but that's when I'm out of shape. When I'm really in shape at like 7 minutes is when I'm like really in shape.
28 minutes. It's pretty close.
Go 80 miles.
Do you want to know what the answer is?
The weird thing is, what algorithm is she using in her head where she actually calculates it to be fairly close? Or is she just pulling that number out of her ass and she just happens to be closer than she ever really deserves to be for that calculation?
Think about 80 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So how long does it take me to go 80 miles if I'm traveling 80
You're
miles
driving
per
fast.
hour?
You are driving faster than a minute a mile.
Yeah, totally.
So I would whack 80 in half, and that's 40. Because I mean, you're probably going 2 minutes a mile.
Just whack it in half.
Well, depends on it. I mean, some cars' tires turn faster than others.
Yeah, definitely affects it.
Because I mean, I think a truck probably is slower because it weighs more.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also matters if your car's a stick or automatic.
Okay, Chal.
What?
Think about the term miles per hour.
MPH.
MPH. So if I say I'm driving 80 miles per hour, that means I'm going to go 80 miles in an hour.
No, you are not, because you are driving faster than a mile a minute. I can run 1 mile in 7 minutes, and that's a 10. Okay? So I mean, that's booking it too.
Okay, so if I'm going 60 miles per hour,
Then it'll take about 30 minutes. I would just cut it right in half.
I'm trying to explain the answer, but
Well, you are not making sense because I make sense. You do not make sense. My car's tires may be they're kind of a little flat, so they may not move as fast as like a police officer's tires that are full. But
okay, Chal, the answer.
my tires are turning maybe I'd say about 400 times per mile.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you the answer. You ready for the
No, they
answer?
gotta be like 1,000.
You ready for the answer? The answer to.
You don't know the answer.
I do know the
You
answer.
can guesstimate just like I guesstimate.
Not guesstimating. I'm using math and science. I'm using my own. I'm using my own term. Okay, Chal. The answer to the question, how far? No. How long does it take me to travel 80 miles if I'm driving 80 miles per hour? The answer is 1 hour. Your guess was close.
So say you drive 60 miles per hour at 60 miles. You want to go 60 miles at 60 miles per hour. Is that an hour?
Yep.
What about 40 miles at 40 miles per hour?
Then you will go 40 miles
No,
in
you
1 hour.
won't. You cut that in half. You're going more than a mile a minute. Okay, let's time. Right now. Let's time and see. It's not filming.
Uh-oh. Oh, can you stop filming? Uh-oh.
A place where you can learn about why gender is non-binary.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, everyone. We're gonna have so much fun. I'm so glad you came today. Are you ready to sing? Are you ready to play? Hooray! It's time for songs for littles. Songs for littles. It's time for songs for littles.
Okay, so this is a lady singing. Okay, right? I mean, unless that is a man with a very high voice, which it is not. That is a lady singing. So what are the pronouns? So Hoffman uses they, them pronouns. And that's, I'm sure, very exciting for your tiny child who doesn't understand what the hell is going on. And yes, distinctions matter to small children and to everyone else in life. But now we have an entire piece in the Washington Post saying that you must expose your child to this or you're a bad parent. Quote, Hoffman is one of the stars of Songs for Littles. Using their niece and nephews, which they refer to as nibblings, as inspiration, Hoffman belts out tunes on
Nibblings? Is that what they said? Nibblings?
Said dinosaurs and the Hokey Pokey. The channel's most popular video has been viewed more than 290 million times. But the channel has come under fire recently after some parents took issue with Hoffman's identity, asserting falsely the show introduced the concept of they-them pronouns to their young audience. A video on TikTok criticizing the show has been...
When I see my kid walk through the door, I'm like, what up, my nibbler? Every time.
viewed more than 400.
You know they made that name just because they wanted to say that, guaranteed.
Times.
These are people that rap to the songs with their windows rolled all the way up when they're driving through traffic. 100%.
Hoffman said the backlash was a surprise and sent them on a roller coaster of emotion as they waded through hundreds of TikToks and commenters, some critical and others supportive. Apparently, the show's star, Rachel Griffin-Accurso, educator and songwriter, announced she was taking a break from social media to address her own mental health after the fallout. Hurtful videos and comments, no matter how much attention they get, will not bring you what you want. Only love can do that.
Aww.
Oh, how radically exciting. Again, how about this? You should be screening pretty much everything your kid watches. The fact that there are people who wish to present themselves to your child in a guise that is deliberately confusing to your child, the fact that that exists means that you just have to police it harder. And parents who refuse to police this material for their kids should not be surprised when their kids become very confused about these things, because they are inherently confusing, because they do not make sense, because they are not true. It turns out that Jules Hoffman is a woman, not a they-them. It's just amazing, amazing stuff. So we'll get to that. That Donald Trump should run for president of the United States. Not only that, the leading feelings that people have with regard to the possibility of a Trump-Biden rematch is exhaustion. Which, frankly, I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why. There's a survey, again, from Yahoo News at YouGov, and it found that 38% of Americans chose exhaustion after being shown a list of 8 feelings and asked to select all that comes to mind when considering another Biden versus Trump campaign.
True.
And among registered voters, that number is even higher, 44%. The other numbers? Fear, 29%, sadness, 23%, hope, 23%, anger, 23%, excitement, 16%, pride, 8%, or gratitude, 7%. Yes, Americans are very positive about another Trump-Biden matchup. It's what the people want. They demand it. And this is one of the big problems that you have with the weakening of parties, counterintuitively. The weakening of both the Republican and the Democratic parties means that basically the bases of both parties and the more involved bases of both parties tend to have outsized influence compared to the rest of the American population, which means very often that candidates who are not wildly popular with the American public end up being the nominees of their parties. Trump, for what it's worth, is currently wrapping up a bunch of congressional endorsements. Now, you would imagine, listen, he's the former president of the United States. He's the Republican frontrunner. He should be. He's also the only major candidate to have announced thus far. You have Nikki Haley, who's announced, and you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who's announced. DeSantis is not yet announced. But Trump is racking up endorsements, particularly in Florida. Again, not a major shock, also because if you are a state or congressional politician, what you don't want is Trump attacking you. If Trump asks you for an endorsement, the safest thing to do is give it to him, because if you don't endorse DeSantis, DeSantis isn't going to attack you, but Trump will if you don't.
True.
So here's Fox News covering that.
I'll be asking everybody to support President Trump, and Ron DeSantis hasn't declared he's running for president yet. I think he's a great governor of Florida. So if I were Florida, I would give DeSantis a 3rd term and everybody get behind President Trump.
You can't.
With us now, Congressman Carlos Jimenez, who was kind enough to take time.
Wait, he just said you can't. Our governor's term limited? I have no idea. Depends on the state. Gotcha.
Time to let us know where he's going and where he's heading and who he's supporting. Congressman, who is it?
Well, announcing that I'll be supporting President Donald J. Trump for president in 2024. I think he gives us the best chance of winning.
Nope.
He had a solid track record as president, and yesterday at the dinner, he laid out a solid plan for the future and where we need to go.
Okay, so this idea that Trump gives Republicans the best chance of winning is belied by pretty much all of the polls at this point, as well as the fact that he already ran an election campaign against Joe Biden, and it didn't go amazing. He's not the president of the United States right now. Trump's team is focused in on Ron DeSantis like a laser beam. According to Rolling Stone, a Trump advisor says, quote, Team Trump does not just want to beat him. Team Trump wants to humiliate him, maybe more than they've ever wanted to humiliate anybody on the national stage. That is what is driving a lot of this. Now, the problem for Trump is that the angle that he's taking with regard to DeSantis is one that does not make the base particularly enthusiastic. He is currently attacking DeSantis with alacrity from the left, almost entirely from the left, because it's impossible to get to DeSantis' right. So instead, he's attacking him from the left. So over the weekend, Trump did a speech in which he ripped on DeSantis repeatedly. The important thing here is really not the attacks. The important thing is the crowd reaction. Listen to how quiet it is.
Oh.
Except you don't see that tabulation. We did much better in 2020 in Florida. I got 1.2 million more votes than your successful governor's campaign. You know that. We got 1.2 million. Sir, I'd love to have your support, sir. I'd love to have your support. I'm down at about 3. I'd love to have your support. All right, let's think about it. And it was like a rocket ship after I gave it. Otherwise, right now, you'd have a lawyer someplace looking for business.
Okay, and...
Well, wait, I feel like there was applause there, no? I mean, maybe not a ton, but there was some.
And the crowd is pretty much silent there.
Wait, what? Am I mishearing?
A million more votes than your successful governor's campaign. You know that. We got 1.2 million.
Maybe it was way louder for other claps, so it's like a... Oh, not after the diss? I guess, but...
Sir, I'd love to have your support, sir. I'd love to have your support. I'm down at about 3. I'd love to have your support. All right, let's think about it. And it was like a rocket ship after I gave it. Otherwise, right now, you'd have a lawyer someplace looking for business.
Okay, and the crowd is pretty much silent there. Because the reality is that the base, unlike when Trump was attacking everybody back in 2016, when nobody actually liked any of the other candidates, this is the dirty secret. Nobody liked anybody else who was running in 2016. And so Trump had a bunch of baked-in advantages. People actually like Ron DeSantis' record of governance. And so Trump has been relegated to attacking DeSantis from the left. He put out a statement, a lengthy statement, over the weekend, in which he said that Florida has now become among the worst states to live, or to find economic opportunity, or to work, or to retire, or to raise a family. No one believes this. No one. Okay, I moved my family.
Man, I've heard, I've only been here for a little bit of time, but I've heard a little bit on the radio, and I hear people complain on the internet as well. I thought that the cost of living in Miami has actually skyrocketed, such to the point that I thought even DeSantis has made statements about it. I thought the cost of living in Florida has actually gotten out of control in a lot of the major cities. I could be wrong, but I feel like I'd heard DeSantis mention it. Actually, wait, hold on. I don't know why I keep saying this. DeSantis, cost of living, Florida. This is back in February. DeSantis blames Florida's skyrocketing housing costs on Biden. Is it all the president's fault?
Kraft und Ehre. So kämpft denn wohl.
Like, I feel like cost of living has gotten pretty high around here, but...
Family to Florida in large part because Governor DeSantis has done an excellent job. And if Andrew Gillum were the governor of Florida, I don't know that I would move my family here. I didn't just move my family. My parents moved, my in-laws moved, 2 of my sisters and their families moved. There's a reason that over the course of the last several years, about 700,000 people have left their home states and moved to Florida. There's a reason why Florida is the fastest growing state in America, and it is not because it is a terrible place to live. This dog just does not hunt. It's a real problem for Donald Trump, actually, that it does not hunt if the issues matter at all. So DeSantis, for his part, he is finally starting to open up the guns on Trump, and he has a pretty good angle here. His angle here is that Trump blew it on COVID. That Trump was too weak on COVID. That Anthony Fauci is only a household name because Donald Trump appointed him and then left him in place and didn't actually have any control over his own policy because he didn't know what to do. So here's Ron DeSantis over the weekend saying, listen, when it came to COVID, I took control because that's what leaders do. They take control.
And to me, leadership is having the courage to make difficult decisions in the teeth of opposition and criticism. A leader must have the confidence to stand all alone if need be. And so for us, as I got into office, COVID presented that situation for us because we were in a situation, the 3rd largest state in the country, one of the highest percentage of elderly, economy based on tourism, which we needed travel to continue. So this situation was an existential threat to our state. But I made the judgment, leaders take the bull by the horns and make the decisions for themselves. They don't subcontract out their leadership to health bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci.
Damn.
That is going to be a very rich vein for attack from DeSantis toward Trump. Because he doesn't have to actually say anything about Trump. He can just say, listen, when it comes to actually formulating policy and being a leader.
Finally, I will say, I mean, obviously I like Fauci more than Trump, but I don't like the fact that so many of you let Trump get away with that. Oh, I couldn't help it. It was the deep state. Oh, I couldn't help it, blah, blah. When these were his own appointees and he had the ability to change up at any point in time, the fact that you let Trump escape any responsibility so often by blaming the people around him when he could choose who's around him is such a position to take.
I was right on COVID, and you're attacking me from the left. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show can...
Although I will say, somebody in Rumble chat, YouTube chat, throw that up. Like, if we're talking about being a leader and having an economy based on tourism, fighting with Disney probably ain't it. That's probably not the best way to go there. Ronnie, what are you doing, man? Disney sues DeSantis and oversight board after vote to nullify agreement with special taxing district. Walt Disney Parks and Resorts on Wednesday sued Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and his hand-picked oversight board, accusing the Republican 2024 presidential prospect of weaponizing his political power to punish the company for exercising its free speech rights. The law, why the fuck? I understand you want to f around and make your, you know, have like your wave your big dick around for your constituents, but why would you, why would you want to go to court with Disney? Bro, what are you doing, little bro? Why would you want to go to court against fucking Disney? Okay, these guys like single-handedly can like legislate the orbit of the moon. Okay, why the fuck would you want to take Disney to court? Jesus. The lawsuit was filed in federal court minutes after the board appointed by DeSantis to oversee Disney's special taxing district sought to claw back its power from the entertainment giant, voting to invalidate an agreement struck between Disney and the previous board in February just before the board's dissolution. What they created is an absolute legal mess, okay? It will not work, said Martin Garcia, chairman of the DeSantis-picked Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Board of Supervisors. Wednesday's moves are the latest escalation in the fight between DeSantis and Disney as DeSantis moves towards a 2024 presidential bid. Disney responded by suing DeSantis, the board, and Florida Department of Economic Opportunity Acting Secretary Meredith Ivey, seeking to block the board's moves. The lawsuit characterizes Wednesday's vote as the latest strike in a targeted campaign of government retaliation orchestrated at every step by Governor DeSantis as punishment for Disney's protected speech. It says DeSantis' retaliation now threatens Destiny. It says DeSantis' retaliation now threatens Disney's business operations, jeopardizes its economic future in the region, and violates its constitutional rights. Disney finds itself in this regrettable position because it expressed a viewpoint the governor and his allies did not like. Disney wishes that things could have been resolved a different way, the lawsuit says, but Disney also knows that it is fortunate to have the resources to take a stand against the state's retaliation. A stand smaller businesses and individuals might not be able to take when the state comes after them for expressing their own views. In America, the government cannot punish you for speaking your mind. The board's move Wednesday was expected, and board members in previous meetings had previewed its arguments over why it saw the agreement as invalid. In March, the board hired a team of law firms to represent the district in potential legal challenges with Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, signaling that DeSantis' appointees anticipated the fight was headed to the courtroom. Disney CEO Bob Iger hinted at the entertainment giant's case against the state when he told shareholders earlier this month that the company has a right to freedom of speech just like individuals do. The governor got very angry about the position that Disney took, and it seems like he's decided to retaliate against us, in effect, to seek to punish a company for its exercise of a constitutional right, Iger said. Is it Iger or Iger? And that just seems really wrong to me against any company or individual, but particularly against a company that means so much to the state that you live in. The fight now shifts, the fight now shifts to the courts, where Disney, in its 77-page lawsuit, is seeking an injunction that would block the board from exercising the power DeSantis and the Republican-led legislature sought to hand it. We are unaware of any legal right that a company has to operate its own government or maintain special privileges not held by other businesses in the state, DeSantis Communications Director Taryn Fensky said. This lawsuit is yet another unfortunate example of their hope to undermine the will of the Florida voters and operate outside the bounds of the law. I will say, I don't know how Pisco feels about this, but I actually do kind of feel like the little thing that Disney had set up seems like a little bit bullshit. It's just funny now that like Republicans wanted to want to undo it because it's not benefiting them and their state ideologically anymore, I guess. But the year-long fight has strained what had long been a cozy relationship between Florida's government and the state's best-known employer and attraction of tourist dollars. DeSantis earlier this month suggested the state could build a prison or competing theme park on what had, for decades, been Disney-controlled property. The Florida governor's battle with Disney has become a flashpoint in the early stages of the 2024 Republican presidential primary. Former President Donald Trump and a slew of other candidates and potential rivals, including former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, have lambasted DeSantis for his actions, characterizing them as anti-business. After a hearing in which several business owners, including those who run restaurants and bars at Disney World locations, urged the board to work with Disney, Garcia said the board would seek to raise taxes to pay for its legal fees in evaluating and combating what he called 11th hour agreements. The Because that's going to cost us money, we're going to have to raise taxes to pay for it, Garcia said. The Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Board of Supervisors, oh, that is true. Now, remember, when it comes to the federal government, when people say things like, oh, well, if we're doing war in Ukraine, we can't take care of the homeless. That's not true. Government dollars aren't really fungible. We can make more money as the federal United States government. We've got the Treasury, we've got the Federal Reserve. We have the ability to kind of like do a lot with our budget. That's a thing that we can do. Oh, wait, hold on. Cake. Does the viewers thing automatically add viewers from my different platforms? Is that what that's doing? Because if so, that's really cute. I just noticed that. However, while the federal government can do that, state governments cannot do that. State governments have to be far more responsible with their budgets than the federal government does, because for the state to raise money, they've got to do things like sell bonds and everything. They can't just print out whatever money they need. Their process for raising money is a little bit more complicated, and a state can't just spend like an insane amount of money. They've got to be more conscientious of it. So state dollars are a bit more fungible, although they do have some ways of raising money compared to the federal government, but. Yeah, the money printer is only for the federal government, you know. Nikolai, wow, directly contradictory of your earlier statement that government doesn't have limitless resources. Nice. Does the statement I make now contradict that the government isn't going to be 5 to 10 years ahead technologically of every... Do I even respond to that? Am I gonna get one guy by that YouTube comment? I'm not gonna get one guy. The Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Board of Supervisors, the board named by DeSantis and packed with his allies earlier this year, took over the Reedy Creek Improvement District, the special taxing district that for half a century gave Disney control over the land around its Central Florida theme parks. But before the DeSantis selected board was in place, Disney in February reached an agreement with the outgoing board that seemed to render the board powerless to control the entertainment giant. The DeSantis administration was unaware of the agreement for a month and vowed retribution after it became public. The agreements Disney signed with the previous board ensured the company's development rights throughout the district for the next 30 years, and in some cases prevented the board from taking significant action without first getting approval from the company. One provision restricted the new board from using any of Disney's fanciful characters until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III, King of England. Its development agreement was approved over the course of 2 public meetings. This had to do with the legal eagle thing, where you peg something on like the air of like a living person. That's like the latest you can peg something. It's kind of like a meme shit, but yeah. Its development agreement was approved over the course of 2 public meetings held 2 weeks apart earlier this year. Both noticed in a local Orlando newspaper and attended by about a dozen residents and members of the media. No one from the governor's office was present at either meeting, according to the meeting minutes. In Wednesday's meeting, the board's special general counsel, Daniel Langley, walked through its legal arguments for nullifying the deal between Disney and the previous board member. I'm sorry, the previous board, my bad. Oh yeah, the role of perpetuities or whatever, which sounds incredibly fucking convoluted, but... He said the board had not provided the required public notice of its meetings and said the agreement was not properly approved by 2 municipalities within the district, the cities of Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista. He also argued the previous amendments to Disney's long-term comprehensive plan were not properly vetted and approved by those 2 municipalities. The bottom line is that a development agreement has to be approved by the governing body of a jurisdiction, and that didn't happen from the cities that have jurisdiction, Langley said. Former Florida Supreme Court Justice Alan Lawson, an attorney hired by the district, said that the old board attempted to act without legal authority to act. This is essentially about what it means to live and work in a county governed by the rule of law. Everyone must play by the same rules, he said. Disney was openly and legally granted unique and special privileges. That privilege of running its own government for a time, that era has ended. If you flip a coin and its heads, I'll tier 5. Let's go, baby! Didn't you argue with a guy on a panel who said the government had infinite money, but just said exactly that? No. Okay, the government doesn't have infinite money. Theoretically, if the government were to print infinitely, then the value of the dollar would go to zero, right? The government can't print an infinite amount of money. However, the federal government, does have a wide wiggle room on our budget because we can print money. States cannot create their own currency and borrow against themselves like that. States have to sell bonds to raise money in other ways, right? So technically, the federal government does have unlimited money, but technically it doesn't have unlimited money because if it prints unlimited money, then the value of the money goes to zero, right? For states don't have the ability to create their own currency. They have to sell bonds and shit to raise money. The end of a decades-old agreement, the state legislature created the Reedy Creek Improvement District in 1967 and effectively gave Disney the power to control municipal services like power, water, roads, and fire protection around its Central Florida theme parks that didn't exist before Walt Disney and his builders arrived. But the special district also freed Disney from bureaucratic red tape and made it cheaper to borrow to finance infrastructure projects around its theme parks, among other significant advantages. That special arrangement, though criticized at times, was largely protected by state politicians as both Disney and Florida benefited from the tourism boom. The unlikely fracturing of Florida's relationship with its most iconic business started during the contentious debate last year over state legislation to restrict certain classroom instruction on sexuality and gender identity. Disney's then CEO, Bob Chapek, facing pressure from his employees, reluctantly objected to the bill, leading DeSantis to criticize the company. When DeSantis signed the legislation into law, Disney announced it would push for its repeal. DeSantis then targeted Disney's special governing powers. For DeSantis, who has built a political brand by going toe-to-toe with businesses he identifies as woke, the latest twist threatens to undermine a central pillar of his story as he lays the groundwork for a likely presidential campaign. Destiny, I know you're off the topic, but the NSA was absolutely the leader of cryptography until the 2000s. At minimum, they added backdoors into everything, probably the ability to crack anything they'd contributed to. They probably don't have unique math, but they controlled cryptography by funding and undermining it for its own purposes. That could have been possible 20 years ago, sure. 20 or 30 years ago, sure, in the early advent of the internet. But not now when it's a multi-billion, billion dollar industry that's decentralized around the entire world, right? An entire chapter of his new autobiography is devoted to Disney, and the saga is well featured in the stump speech he has delivered around the country in recent weeks. Go find the magical backdoor. Oh, an AES or RSA, or yeah, I mean, there's big encryption standards. We've got big encryption standards now that I don't even think would be broken by quantum computing, theoretically, right? I feel like this is another example of something that I said earlier, where it seems like we become so politically fractured in this country that we can't even take credit for the things that are like the best about us anymore. I feel like now and now you've got Florida, DeSantis fighting with Disney. Disney, which is inarguably a historic and internationally relevant and front and center, like propagator of American culture, like a US business, and now even Florida, where Disney World exists, is fighting with Disney. Like, how sad is that? Like, how is that? Now, if you're in Florida and a Republican, how do you feel about, like, arguably the most important business that maybe has ever existed in your state? All the shit that Disney owns. Oh yeah, the new conservative boycott. Disney owns way too much shit. It's a little crazy. As anyone who's read my abstinence column here on Fox News Opinion could guess, my wedding is something that I've looked forward to for quite some time. After having tied the knot at the end of August, I can now say beyond all shadow of a doubt that it was everything I'd hoped and prayed that it would be since childhood. I'd also prayed to be bitten by a radioactive spider and develop sticky hands, but I was an idiot. Let me preface this column by saying this. My wife, I have to get used to saying that, and I not only waited sexually in every way, no, we didn't put the Bill Clinton and technically avoid sex. We didn't pull the Bill Clinton and do the technically avoid sex. But we didn't shack up as live-ins, and most importantly, we courted each other in a way that was consistent with our publicly professed values. We did it right. Feeling judged? I couldn't care less. You know why? Because my wife and I were judged all throughout our relationship. People laughed, scoffed, and poked fun at the young, celibate, naive Christian couple. We'd certainly never make it to the wedding without shtupping. And if we did, our wedding night would be awkward and terrible, they said. Turns out, people couldn't have been more wrong. Looking back, I think the women saying those things felt like the floozies they ultimately were, and the men, with their fickle manhood tied to their pathetic sexual conquests, felt threatened. I think it's important to write this column, not to gloat, though I'll be glad to, but to speak up for all the young couples that have also done things the right way. When people do marriage right, they don't complain so much, and so their voices are silenced by the rabble of promiscuous charlatans peddling their pathetic worldview as progressive. Our wedding was perfect. Our wedding night was nothing short of amazing. I write this on a plane, heading into a tropical paradise with the most beautiful woman to have walked the planet Earth. I know everybody says that their bride was the most beautiful in the world. They're wrong, I win. I'd like to tell you a story of our morning after, however. One that transpired into one of the most glaring epiphanies I'd ever had. As my wife, again, still not used to that, and I ate breakfast at a local inn, we discussed how excited we were to start the rest of our lives together, how scary it was that everything was now so different. At the same time, we overheard the table next to us discussing their very own wedding from the night prior. What a coincidence. The thing is, nothing's really changed, the bride said. Puzzled, my wife asked, "Did you get married last night too?" "So did we." "Congratulations," the other dame said. "Yeah, we did, just last night." "Where's the groom?" My wife innocently scratched that, naively asked. "Oh, he's sleeping." There was no way he was coming out with me this morning. She paused and smirked. Let's just say that he's got a lingering headache from a really good time last night. My heart sank. Firstly, that poor schmuck's good time was simply getting snookered. Not enjoying the company of close family and long-lost friends, with a clear head and a clean conscience. Not staring in awe at his beautiful new wife, wanting to soak in every glimmer of her eyes as she shot him heart-racing looks from across the dance floor. Not taking all the cheesy pictures as they cut the cake. Not even carrying her across the sweet threshold as they nervously anticipated their nightcap. He probably won't remember any of it. Instead, he got smashed. He was that guy at his own freaking wedding. Then I realized something. Our wedding was truly a once-in-a-lifetime event. It was a God's honest celebration of two completely separate lives now becoming one. Physically, emotionally, financially, and spiritually, everything that made us who we were individually was becoming what bonded us together. Our family traveled from far and wide to celebrate the decision of two young people to truly commit themselves to each other and selflessly give themselves to one another in a way that they never had before that very night. The people next to us that morning, well, theirs was just one big party. And the morning after, just another hangover. Our weddings were the same event in name only. They know it, and we know it. Do yours the right way. If you're young and wondering whether you should wait, whether you should just give in, become a live-in harlot/mimbo, and do it the world's way. If you're wondering whether all the mocking, the ridicule, the incredible difficulty of saving yourself for your spouse is worth it, let me tell you without a doubt that it is. Your wedding can be the most memorable day and night of your life, or just another party. Oops, did I just make a judgment? You're darn right I did. That was a good lesson in not judging other types of lifestyles from our recently divorced friend, Steven Crowder. RIP.
I have been living with a proverbial boot on my neck for going on years now. Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say on the outset, to be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side. And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. It's been the most heartbreaking experience.
Wait, what the fuck does that mean? What is the implication there? Does he think he should be allowed to force her to stay married if she doesn't want to be?
in my life, what I consider to be, want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. It's been the most heartbreaking experience of my life, what I consider to be my deepest personal failure. And just so you know, my opinions on parenting and families have not changed. I've always believed that children need a mom and a dad, that divorce is horrible. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period. So for well over a year...
Wait, is there any state in the United States where it's not like that? Is that the case anywhere? Where, like, one party's forbidden from divorcing the other if they both don't want it? Like, no faults divorce? Are those still illegal in the United States?
Schön, dass ich helfen konnte. Jo, kommt bald wieder.
Wait, why do I ask you guys these questions? How many states no fault divorce? I don't know. 17 states in the US are considered no fault states for divorce. These no fault divorce states are blah blah blah. Nebraska, baby. Oh, and Florida, I guess, because that's my state now too, I guess. Ugh. So is this saying that in 33 states you have to? I mean, I guess it depends on.
Obviously, living in a house where parents hate each other is better for the kids.
Oh, 33 U.S. states offer persons undergoing a divorce the option of no-fault divorce, but these states can also be considered fault states, as persons can choose to file for divorce in the traditional way of casting blame. Fault typically includes grounds for divorce, including adultery, abandonment, inability to engage in sexual intercourse. Damn. Being in jail or cruelty. Cruelty, more specifically, causing is typically the most common grounds for fault divorce, and fault one of both can be a fault.
Zeit ist Geld. Schön, dass ich helfen konnte.
The trans athlete is going to do a lot to like foster a lot of. Then don't.
It honestly just feels a lot more like conservatives in America don't have the ability to talk about sex stuff openly. So any excuse they can grab onto to like have that as an outlet, they would probably gravitate towards, or they're like so mad against it as well too they can't help but talk about it.
I'm glad you said that, Brento, because I think that I disagree with you, Brento, but I think we have to be honest on the left side that I think part of the reason, actually, why conservatives and right-leaning people tend to go to this argument over other arguments on trans issues is because I think this probably might be the best argument that conservative people have. Not to say that I agree or disagree with it, but when a lot of conservative positions on trans issues come down to, like, borderline, we should harass trans people and, like, encourage their suicide by, like, misgendering them and stuff, something like this, I think, is much stronger than that. I think that's something we have to honestly grapple with.
What the fuck? Conservatives are out there pimping that we should harass trans people with their suicide? Are you fucking crazy?
Brother,
have you ever been to a conservative area?
Horseshit argument. I can't even believe you throw that kind of charge around here. Like, who are you talking to?
Liberals are like pretty fucking transphobic. Like, I don't.
Dad, make your arguments a little bit better rather than calling names.
That are rooting for trans people.
There's two things.
So what's happening in Texas right now?
Most of the people are.
Well, really quick, hold just a second. So really quick, the people most likely to root for trans suicide are going to be the more right-leaning people on average, right? That's not like a hot take.
Who is rooting for people to commit suicide? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Debate board, if you want to make the case, Debate board, if you want to make the case that the people that are doing this are like a local minority and you denounce those people, we can totally have that argument. But in the same way that I can admit there are like some crazies on the left that are like super anti-Semitic, but say not all the left is anti-Semitic, you need to be willing to say that like if you're on the internet and someone's making a 43% joke, like a betting man is going to say that person's probably on the right.
That 43% joke don't exist. You made that up. It's a liberal lie.
This is gross.
What, like 13% of the population?
No.
Come on.
Why can't there's probably honest arguments on both sides. We probably don't have to struggle the ever-living fuck out of like.
Everybody shut up.
Who said all conservatives?
Echo chamber. Come on now.
Well, like,
No
why
one
even
panel
bring
said
up,
all
why even,
conservatives.
why even bring up the most extreme arguments? I don't think anybody agrees.
Because
that,
they're being made?
Who on this panel
you
is
guys
making... Wait. Who on this panel is making the argument that, like, all trans people should commit suicide?
Somebody on this panel is making the argument that nobody makes that argument.
Wait, why would we talk about the types of arguments that some people on the internet make? Why not just like
Because
focus
they're
on the
permeant in
actual
society. Because these arguments, if
that's-
somebody's making them, it's the case that there's at
Okay,
least
hold
some.
on. This is why
Because that's the
leftists...
only
No.
argument
This is why...
that
Hold on.
they
This is why you guys
because that's
suck
the
shit.
only argument that the people have.
Destiny, go ahead.
It's such a dog shit conversation. Like, why not actually talk about the topic rather than finding the most strawman, ridiculous, stupid, like troll versions of arguments online?
Nobody's being
and then just
strawman.
screaming about that. It's a dumb argument. Nobody here thinks that trans people should be killing themselves. Like, a lot of conservatives would probably say, like, yeah, you shouldn't tell trans people to kill themselves. So why have
So
a big
somebody's saying
argument?
that somebody,
Why have a big-
the issue, Destiny, is not, nobody on the panel so far, I don't think anybody on the panel said that all conservatives think this. The issue is somebody who's a conservative on the panel said that no conservatives think this.
Well, hold on,
That's the real issue.
No, hold on, stop, don't strawman him. I doubt he said that no conservative thinks this. He's probably saying
Yes, he did. He verbatim said that. You put it on the back. Debate board did. Debate board did. You run the bot back and then like figure out your position
Okay,
first.
I'm gonna hold on. Let's use our brains a little bit. My guess is probably, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that not all conservative people think this. If there are people saying this online, yeah, they're probably more likely to be conservative, but the mainstream conservative argument is not that all trans people should go commit suicide.
Nobody said that it was.
Then why talk about it? Why
You could go run the bot and just listen. Debate board. No, it's not the case. The debate board said that like there is not all conservative or something. She said this. Debate board made the claim that nobody is doing this. When somebody mentioned there are some people making 43% jokes, debate board said no, nobody's doing this. He pushed really hard against this.
Let's hear from the
Floating hyperbolic. That's what you said verbatim.
I just don't know why you.
You can't tell me you never hear.
Just give him something slacks.
It's absurd. It's a caricature that you guys do with each other as you circle jerk in your little panel here, your little echo chamber here, and nod your heads and root with one another on it. And it's bullshit.
Her little open.
Oh God, guys, we got an intellectual. We got an intellectual. Let him finish. Debate board, go ahead, please.
That says something stupid, and now you say, oh yeah, and conservatives most likely are going to root for trans people, to commit suicide. They don't really have an argument here, and this is the only thing they bring up because, otherwise they just want trans people to commit suicide. That's how you guys are talking, and it's absolutely
Nobody said any of that.
Nobody said that.
It's funny. It's funny. We're the ones being accused of strawmanning, but debate board just came in and strawmanned every single person left of him on the panel. Debate board, can I ask you really quick? Debate board, do you think it's the case? Just an olive branch, just so we know your position. Do you think it's the case that there are no conservatives whatsoever making trans suicide making trans suicide jokes, pushing trans people to suicide, or telling trans people they should commit suicide? None of them. 0%.
I don't know.
The answer is yes, there are people doing that. Come on, debate board. Yes, the answer is
proven.
Everyone's seen it. Anyone who's been in any transphobic space for like more than 3 seconds.
I don't know
I've seen it in real life.
I don't know, you spend a lot of time in this Twitch
Have you never seen trans harassment in real life? Do you have no clue what it looks like?
Yeah, maybe there is some idiot conservative out there, or idiot right-wing person, or just general idiot who has said something stupid about trans people. However, conservatives
right now.
about trans women competing in sports against other women, they're not making the argument because, wow, we just can't figure out any other argument. Oh my goodness, we just last week we were talking about trans women, and we were talking and there were conservatives on the panel, or right-leaning people on the panel, talking about hormone blockers and pediatric trans surgery. So what do you mean?
Oh, the thing that doesn't happen. Right. You love bringing that up. You love it.
Debate board, if I can re-clarify my position from I've originally brought it up, and I can apologize if you felt like I mischaracterized conservatives. The point that I was trying to originally make is that I think part of the reason why conservative talking points on transgender issues oftentimes make their way to the issue of trans women in sports is that I think that argument, even though I disagree with it, is frankly a lot better than a lot of the other arguments or typical points that get bandied about by conservatives. And I think that if you look at those points, you can make a fair enough assessment that not only are a decent number of these, shall we say, transphobic, we can say that not all conservatives are transphobic, certainly not all of them want suicide, that a lot of these arguments are probably going to lead to a world where there are probably more trans suicide. When we talk about like dead naming people or giving them healthcare. These are a lot harder arguments for conservatives to win because there's a lot more empirical data where it says these things help save people, trans people, from committing suicide. And that's not necessarily the case with trans sports. That's all
Rather
I'm
than
trying
like hyper fixating on trying to figure out like what the motivation is for an argument or something, why not just like dismantle the actual argument? And then if you think that somebody's being
It's what
transphobic,
Prime asked.
call out the transphobic.
That was
like it just it's so
Prime moved the topic here. I don't,
It's
that's like
we were talking about. We're literally having a discussion here, and your one response is, "How about you guys just dismantle the argument?" Like, do you realize how like weird?
Because the second I came in, you guys are saying shit like conservatives want trans people to kill themselves, and then you guys got into like this weird side.
Okay.
We're just having a non-conversation.
That's my line of logic. Is there going to be a predominance on which side of the political aisle for people who want trans people, or are more in favor or more likely to be transphobic and more likely lead to these consequences? And if so, which side is it?
Who cares?
Come on,
The reason
answer
we
the
were talking
question.
about this is we were looping.
Answer the question, Steve.
Well, it's probably going to be conservatives are more likely to be anti-trans, but what does that have to do with...
There he is. He said it. He got it out.
Wait,
So,
got what? Wait,
who's
do you think
more
it's like a
likely to make
concession?
the arguments? Who's more likely to make the arguments on behalf of trans suicidality? Who's more likely to crack the 43% jokes?
I don't even know it, but my guess would probably be conservatives.
Yeah, you do know. Like, we can list numerous examples.
Ellen, we already know this.
What is the point of this conversation?
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah, of course, I know this. Like, who's more likely to, like, say that, like, there's a million things that we could characterize from either political side. I don't know how that gets us any further in the conversation topic.
Okay, enough.
We're just taking pod shots.
Let's get back to
just dismantle the
back to
argument.
substantial
guys.
discussion.
We're doing that. We're talking about the issue. It's all encompassing.
We're not really talking about the issue. We're just
Not
like
all
coming.
encompassing.
I
don't think it's crazy
This whole panel
to say.
You're trying to hand wave what could be like legitimate criticism over a topic by just screaming transphobe to everybody.
No, nobody's done that. No, we talked about the. We talked in depth about the topic.
Shitty Twitter post earlier today, so we could talk about that too, which is basically this.
You mean every Twitter post?
Specifically,
Destiny.
You're on board. Just catch up a little.
Hold on, no,
Destiny,
this is really important context. We had been having a discussion. We were about to move the discussion. Prime Case wanted to stay on the general discussion, but he specifically wanted to talk about why this discussion was so pervasive. So we were giving reasons why it was culturally pervasive. That's why we were talking about people's attitudes towards the topic. It was incredibly relevant to the conversation we were having. Coming in and saying, like, this massive straw man that all conservatives want blah, blah, blah. No, we were just saying that there are conservatives who are transphobic, and this is a problem.
No, but you would.
If that was what was said, if that only was said, that would be great, but that wasn't the case at all. Instead, what we heard was that this absurd caricature that conservatives, there was no qualification. Conservatives want to see more trans suicides or root for more trans people to commit suicide. It's an absurd caricature, and you guys focus.
There are absolutely these people. Have you never seen trans harassment in the real world? What are you talking about?
There's women harassment, there's male harassment, there's harassment.
God damn, I must be meeting a caricature every day.
What? Do you not think harassment's a problem? I agree, but do you don't think that...
Conservatives, the way that Flo did.
But they're all conservatives who are harassing trans people by telling them to kill themselves, by circle jerking their transphobic friends, by saying, I hope they all fucking kill themselves. This is a self-solving problem, right? How often do you hear that? It's a self-solving problem.
Even if we don't apply intent, right? Like, which party is putting policies that will emotionally and economically and maybe even physically damage trans individuals? Like, which side of the aisle is actually putting that forward? We don't take
right
the
now, it
intention
seems like
out of
both
it.
of them. Right now, both of them kind of are. I think that the trans athlete
fuck
stuff.
off.
I think the trans athlete shit is going to do a lot to like foster a lot of really bad will against like trans people in general. I think it's a really good turf argument for, well, look, these people just want to destroy women's spaces. Because for the athletic arguments, it's kind of true. So I think in that sense, I think it's a pretty harmful thing.
But that's not directly meant to hurt trans people. It's meant to be the exact opposite.
Dr. K, go ahead, please. I want to hear what you have to say.
All right. Yeah, like that. The stuff about the trans people in sports, like any bill, there's not a single Democrat bill that is maliciously built with the intent to hurt trans people, right? Whereas across this country, in Florida, in Texas, in so many states, there's stuff meant explicitly to make the life
and existence of being trans harder. This is not.
Sure, and that's
This
bad.
isn't hard.
But the drive for more inclusiveness for trans people in women's sports is all coming from the left.
But it's not. It's not being driven by militia. Even if
it doesn't matter if
I
it's
don't
being
think
driven. Hold on, it doesn't matter if it's being driven by malice.
Can I please talk? It's my turn to talk, Stephen. Thank you. So one, it's not being driven by maliciousness, right? One, which is what we're talking about, and two, right, is that it's like it's even accepting that it is meant to hurt them, right? Stephen, come on.
Okay, whether or not something is driven by malice is not relevant. That's like a first grader's analysis of like legislation. That's like saying if we look at we'll look at voter ID laws.
That's what we're talking about.
So it's not malicious.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. Is if one party is actively transphobic, and it is.
Yeah, I got a question for you. How would you feel if we were like 80 years ago and we made this argument about like Jesse Owens? Okay, black people are just stronger than white people. It wouldn't be fair if Jesse Owens competed. I mean, come on.
I don't know if there's
I have a question for
that black
Desmond.
people are just stronger. Do you think that the differences between black and white people are as pronounced as the differences between women and men? Do you really think that?
Look, no, the argument isn't about women and men, right?
The argument is about women and men.
Towards black people long ago.
And the same arguments about the earth being flat were made about the earth being round. That doesn't mean that both are wrong. Like, there are differences between men and women. That doesn't mean that there had to have been differences between black people and white people. Do you think that 100 years from now we're all going to be enlightened and we're going to realize that men and women are the same?
That they're on average taller? Like, come on. African American individuals are on average taller than white men.
If you're going to compare African American, you're probably going to go to different ethnicities, and you're going to compare them with different ethnicities of white people, right? Because the tallest people in the world, I'm pretty sure were white. So that doesn't even make sense.
Destiny, I have a question for you.
And we're talking about an American-centric issue here, so you know, why should we let Jesse Owens?
But sports aren't like sports aren't limited to.
Do you understand how deranged?
There's nothing like
everybody else in the world can look and see that there is clearly a difference between physiologically men and women. You guys should know this on the left. You talk about rape culture in general all the time, and it's one of the big concerns that women has. But then as soon as like trans athletes come up, you lose your fucking mind.
Nobody's disagreed with that claim. What are you talking about?
Why are you comparing black people and white people and saying that's the same as comparing women and men?
Instead of saying
just keep getting introduced, Destiny. Everybody's agreeing that there's a difference, like generally speaking, between men and women on the physical side.
Yeah, I just take an issue with
I don't know what the
contrarian arguments here.
What is hold on? What argument is contrarian?
80 years ago to Jesse Owens.
It was a side tangent.
I don't understand why you think that. Yeah, I don't know the black that would have been a bad argument then. But if somebody wanted to say back then black and white people might be susceptible to different types of diseases based on genetics, I mean that would have been true, I guess. If we talk about sickle anemia or something.
It's fine. Prime, recenter us, please.
Yeah.
This party is notably transphobic, and I think that that's inarguable.
What's transphobic?
Well, y'all are expanding like what? Y'all are like drastically expanding what was said. What was said was that a typical argument from conservatives is that trans people don't kill themselves. That was what the issue is. But then to back that up, you all changed it to which party is more against trans people, which party is passing bills, and that wasn't the part. That wasn't the issue of the statement that was made. The statement was that a typical argument by from conservatives is that trans people want to kill themselves. That's the part that's ridiculous.
And who said it was a typical argument? Nobody said it was a typical argument.
Yes, that's exactly what Fodre said.
No, there's just an enormous.
Fodre, did you ever say the words typical argument?
I don't think.
Or did you just say that the conservatives
would
do this, right?
I think just clarify to you, Vanilla T. The argument I was just trying to make was that I think that the reason why conservatives tend to go to trans people in sports is because that argument is a lot stronger than their other arguments, which oftentimes have implications on the suicide of trans people, and that can be something that's very difficult.
That's not what you said first.
Because well then I misspoke, and I legitimately apologize, and I'm trying to clarify this right now. It's legitimately hard for me to talk, and it's a big panel. So that's the argument I'm trying to make, is that other conservative arguments have a lot bigger implication in terms of the suicide rate of trans people compared to the trans people in sports argument, and that is one reason why I think they go to that argument. Well, because frankly, it is a stronger argument for them. The reason we were talking about why people make the arguments as opposed to the arguments themselves, I think if we're being honest, is because we all agree with each other, because we're all lefties, and we were just moving.
Yes.
Okay.
Destiny, are you caught up now?
I don't think. I just don't think it's unfair to call out. Like it seems weird that we wouldn't call out the other party for that behavior. I mean, you don't have to focus on that, but like it's when we see others like basing their political platform, right? Like fucking Abbott, right, in Texas, who Dr. K was trying to get to previously, right? Like thinking that he's going to save himself by showing his conservative bona fides. How does he plan on doing that? He plans on hurting trans kids. That's what he does. And like this,
spreads meat to the base.
To the base, right? Like it's just a thing. So we can pretend that's not the case, right? It seems like this gets some people butt hurt when you like mention like the obvious fact, but it is what it is. But beyond that,
it is what it is.
We can.
I think it hurts your side when people jump to like labeling like transphobe, right? Like we're so past like people on the left just using like racist, Nazi, fascist, transphobe, homophobic, like for every single thing. And I think it's better to just like take apart like when people say shitty or bad things, just address that.
Okay, so
I think that when you're
I think the Conservative Party is transphobic.
No. Do you think that like when you address the arguments that a conservative has, that understanding the motivations for why they're making those arguments is ever important for doing that?
Yeah, but I don't think very few of you understand the motivation. Like, here's a question.
Well, you don't understand what was going on the panel when you jumped in, so I think understanding here is going to be coming from you.
The question for the panel was
Let's
why
review the
they feel that way.
motivations.
Yeah, do you guys think the vast majority of conservatives like actually hate trans people, like want them to go away because of some amount of malice or whatever?
In an explicit way, no.
No.
You guys just
implicitly
talking
yes.
about
Implicitly yes. Explicitly no. And
depends on the faction.
In the otherization that they purvey upon trans people in society. Which party is more prone to other trans people in society?
More prone to?
Doesn't even mean.
Well, yeah, what does he mean by that?
We all kind of know what he means. Like he means like which one supports trans people. Which supports trans people more?
Conservatives or Republicans or whatever are more prone in their rhetoric to direct malice or anger or frustration or blame societal issues
Hate,
on
fear,
trans people.
anger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, probably, yeah.
It just seems like if we.
That's it.
So it's an easy no-brainer. Yes, of course, the conservatives or Republican Party are going to be the ones that tend to be much more transphobic. And yeah, you know what? Some of them say some pretty fucking heinous shit. I don't know that all of them do, but I've heard them say some fucking horrible, horrendous ass shit.
So to answer your question, Destiny, you're saying like do most conservatives feel this way? Well, I'm not exactly sure exactly like what they feel. I know how they vote. I know what arguments seem to appeal to them. Right? I know what their politicians seem to think appeals to them because they keep hitting these same points over and over again, right? They keep using the same, and they're not like these politicians aren't punished. It's not like the voters are going, "Hey, now," right? Republican voters going, "Hey, knock it off with the trans stuff," right? We don't want to hear any of that. Let's get back to the economic issues that are actually affecting our lives. That doesn't happen, right? So I have no idea what's going on in the minds of individual conservatives, but I can see the end result. And if you're saying like take the time and demolish argument, well, we can do that, and we can try to do that again. But the problem is, as you understand, if there's a bad faith actor who just doesn't like a group, well, then your arguments are going to fall on deaf ears, right? So I think it's just
right.
Prime, why would you bring us to a conversation about the motivations if you don't care about the motivations and only care about the consequences?
Are you seriously asking me? Or are you joking?
He just said it.
Yeah,
it
was a fair question.
This sounds like circular reasoning here.
That I don't.
So, Prime, just a minute ago, you attempted to presume what Abbott's motivations were for this current trans law down in Texas, that he's trying to demonstrate or reveal his bona fides to conservatives, that he's trying to save his political ass by engaging this kind of policy making. And yet what you just did was imputed a bad faith to him. And then you'll say, well, he's a bad faith actor, so we have to look at motivations, because if we have a bad faith actor, then
I didn't say that we couldn't look at motivations. I'm sorry.
Right?
Did you think that's what I said? Was it phenomics? What was your point?
Okay, I got to clarify. I got it. I understand.
I
understand. Prime asked about motivations, even though he didn't really care about them. Maybe he was just interested in what we wanted to talk about.
Did I say that I didn't care about motivations? I said I didn't know what their motivations were. Phenomics. What did you ask me? I didn't realize that was a serious question.
No, from what you were talking about, you made it sound like you don't care about their motivations. It sounded like you were responding by saying, even if their motivations aren't to like be bad to trans people, their actions are bad to trans people. I think that like the better argument that we should be talking about is that the implicit bias that suggests, not the consequences are bad when that doesn't really have like obviously that's a reason to care about the motivations, but you never brought it back to the reason about the motivations. It felt more like you were trying to deflect so you didn't have to defend the motivations, which you're probably not as comfortable in. But I would really wish we would talk about that so that we could actually get to the root of the issue.
Why would I defend their motivations? I don't understand. Like I'm on the side of
I'm saying that defend your interpretation of their motivations and make sure that it's not what Destiny thinks it is, which is some massive straw man of that they all hate trans people, right? We want to actually get to it so that Destiny doesn't go and tell his massive stream of people that we're all circle jerking about stupid shit right now.
Oh, come on.
No, he's gonna do that
Fair with
anyway,
Destiny. We brought Destiny up.
Dead, so we can actually get trans rights in his audience, right? So that we can actually get that, so we can stop being stupid right now.
It'd be great if Prime and others would substantiate what they think are the most folks like, say, Governor Abbott. You guys seem to spend so much time imputing and presuming motivations, and then you guys use words like pretend, like the other side is pretending to care, as you smear them as bad faith actors with illegitimate or uncredible arguments. And I think Destiny's point was getting to why waste your mental effort and energy and time on trying to impute false motives to folks simply to scrape them away. You guys just avoid dealing with actual arguments.
So, not all of us.
Except that that actually hasn't been the case. We actually have been tackling this directly. So look, we can go back to, if you guys are so uncomfortable with dealing the reality of how conservatives operate in the real world and the intentions behind that, that's okay, right? If it gives you the heebie-jeebies to talk about, sure, we can go back to the actual discussion itself, right? Like we were talking about changing the leagues, right? Like how we divide athletes, right? We can divide them on an axis other than sex, right? We can do that. If that's what you want to do, we can make that happen, right?
No, we kind of covered that.
Sorry, excuse me, hon.
What was the consensus on? What was the consensus on that? I'm so curious.
Yeah, I think there was. I'm not sure if there was a consensus, but we talked about. I was saying that indeed we should be able to divide other and axes other than sex, and that if we understand that there's biological advantages within sports, right? That's more than just sex, right? It follows on many other characteristics.
You're always going to have some sex differentiation, no?
Not necessarily. No.
Yeah.
Why?
Can somebody can somebody name one category where men and women are equal? It's not weight. It's not height.
Well, hold on. Just because they're going to cluster in different categories doesn't mean it's along sex lines, right?
Can you name one sport where women outperform men?
So Destiny, if the upper category, right? Let's say the upper league, whatever you want to call it, right? Is almost all men, then that's okay, right? If that's how it shakes out, then that's fine. And
okay,
that league, the heavyweight league, whatever, right?
Yeah,
men
when you say
exist.
stuff like this, you justify the existence of turfs. They were right. You do want to destroy women's spaces. That's what you're saying.
Hold on. First of all, I don't give a shit about
what.
Okay, hold on, wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to explain that, right? So you're essentially saying you want to eliminate women's sports in the professional world. The top echelon is all men, and that's okay. And then you have lower brackets that women somehow get into, hopefully, if enough.
No, you can have like different weight classes that are all going to be like the top of their league, right?
Wait, no, you can't. Oh, a 120
Let's run through the categories again.
Wait, hold on, wait. A 120-pound woman is not going to be competitive with a 120-pound man in any sport. That's why I'm asking.
So that's right. So wait, no. That's not true because in like running, that is true. That
okay, if besides extreme endurance sports.
Okay, but if we go on the other things, we don't have to use weight classes for everything. Weight classes can work for things like running, but we can also use endocrine classes for other sports. There's a variety of
the same. No, there's no variety. You have to at some point differentiate between sex, or else you're eliminating women from these sports.
What do you think? What do you think endocrine classes would be, Destiny? What do you think endocrinological sex is?
Like classifying people based on the current level of their hormone profiles or whatever?
No. You should go research the biology, then talk about the biology afterwards.
No,
Okay,
Sam.
hold on, no,
explain it
wait.
to him.
Why don't, yeah, please explain this to me so I can tell you how fucking stupid you are. Go ahead. Tell me what the profile is.
It's
You don't have a definition.
Endocrinological sex.
Destiny, you're
Endocrinological
just
sex.
about to get owned.
Endocrinological sex is not the case with endocrinological sex. It's based on the level of the hormones in the body. Endocrinological sex is based on the effects of those hormones.
How do you measure the effect of a hormone?
Are you serious?
Yes. So I'm gonna take a man and a woman. I'm gonna take a man and a woman, and I'm gonna have both of them.
Answer your question.
Resistance training for 2 years. How do you measure the effects?
You want me to answer your questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
That's why I'm asking. I'm asking you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So we can measure the height. That's one effect hormone levels can have on a person. It could be the case that like the hormones make you grow taller or shorter. It could be the case that hormones make you have a certain proportion.
Hold on. Wait.
Go ahead.
How
Go ahead.
wide are these ranges? So instead of, because I know you want a verbal diarrhea, a whole bunch of nonsense bullshit.
No, you asked me. You asked me a question. You asked me a question. I'm giving you information.
Answer your question.
So my request is let's go one thing at a time, okay? So you're telling me so you're telling me that you can determine how much of a person's height was influenced by a hormone?
No.
So what did you just say? Repeat it back to me.
Sure. You can measure the influences of, you can measure like the things that hormones influences. And endocrinological sex is the things that are influenced by the hormones.
Okay, but if I have a man that's 6 feet tall and a woman that's 6 feet tall, what does that tell me? What information do I get?
It tells you that one very small aspect of the overall field of endocrinological sex is going to be more masculine in this woman than it is on average.
Okay, all you're doing is in a very wordy way recreating both sex categories.
Yes.
No, no, not even close. Sex categories exist in endocrinological sex. That's one sex category. There's chromosomal sex, which wouldn't be the same as endocrinological sex. For example, if somebody has like De La Chapelle syndrome, they'd have female female chromosomal sex, but male endocrinological sex. It's not the case either the same as like normal sex categories.
So how would you determine how one's height is so if you have a 5'11" woman, how would you determine that's more of an endocrinological expression of sex rather than like a genetic expression of sex? How would you begin to determine that?
So all expressions of sex, I'm not sure what do you think a genetic expression of sex would be?
Well, let's see. Different genetics, I'm guessing, between men and women probably express different hormone profiles in different ways, and those hormone profiles will probably have an effect on some phenotypical things that you have in your life as well. Whether you're talking about bone density, whether you're talking about height, whether you're talking about VO capacity in your lungs, like these are going to be things that are ultimately expressed by the interplay between your hormone profile and your biology or whatever, right?
So the answer to your question is you don't tell the difference because all of them are endocrinological.
So what have you done? Can you give me an example of how you're using this to create a classification that doesn't just get us male and female at the end of the day?
Because you don't karyotype people when you want to put them in sports. Instead, you can take a look at the sex characteristics that the endocrine system produces, and then you compare trans athletes up in women's sports, and you can compare like trans man athletes up in men's sports. So long as they're able to fit those categories.
Give me an example of this.
An example of what?
Of what you just said.
Of this being done and operating and working.
I have no idea how you would even. I don't think you understand how unbelievably complicated.
Olympics right now are based on hormones.
That type of analysis is unbelievably crude and it's bullshit. So why would you even use that as an example? That's not some complicated endocrinology. That's just taking a reference range of hormones for 2 years and saying,
the only analyses we can do are going to be abstractions. We can't ever do. We can't find like a perfect level of how meritocratically female and sex you are, and throw you in with like the perfect female sex range.
I agree. That's why it should just be male and female. You can't do just a hormone profile. So we got all the way back to the Olympic definition, which is what I said initially, that you were really excited to bring there, and now you're just saying it's a hormone profile. Okay.
No, degender it completely. Degender it completely. Who gives a fuck if women can't compete at the top level? If they can't do it,
I mean, that's essentially what the argument seems to be.
Who watches women's sports? If a woman can rise to the top,
nobody watches women's sports. It doesn't matter.
No, wait,
maybe if we all get more things into the viewers' heads.
What is the heart of your objection, Destiny? What is so like? Are you saying that are you here protecting women's spaces? Is that your point, or are you?
I just think the arguments are dog shit. I don't give a fuck. I hate women. Okay, I'm an incel.
Okay.
Right?
Well, look, as long as.
But I think the arguments that like it doesn't matter or it's all arbitrary are bullshit. Like a trans woman athlete has basically been like competing with performance-enhancing drugs flowing throughout their entire body for the better part of their existence, and then switches sexes or however you would say it via HRT and is pretending to be on the same level now. That's absolute bullshit. It's not even remotely resembling reality.
It depends entirely on the sport.
It does. Okay. Okay. In case of like Olympic power walking or like massive endurance sports, fine. But for 98% of sports, it's incredibly relevant.
Well, no, it does depend on which sport we're talking about.
Make it too simple.
What's an example of that?
For
Destiny, it is very complicated.
For
and that's what we're
example,
trying to
in
sort
the
out
in the
different
stuff
categories.
everyone's losing
Go
their
with us,
shit
Sid.
over, the Leah Thomas example.